Democracy depends on a free press. Please support our independent journalism at democracynow.org/give. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Today, a Democracy Now! Global exclusive. We're joined by Mohsen Mahdawi in his first live interview since being released after spending more than 2 weeks in a Vermont prison. Mahdawi is a Columbia University student, Palestinian activist who holds a green card. He's a legal permanent resident. He was arrested in Vermont in mid-April when he appeared for what he'd been told was his naturalization interview. After completing the interview, he ended up being taken away by armed and masked federal agents. Mohsen moved to Vermont from the occupied West Bank in 2014, where he was third generation in his family, to live in El Farah, a Palestinian refugee camp. He later attended Lehigh University in Pennsylvania before transferring to Columbia in 2021 to study international affairs. At Columbia, he was co-president of Columbia's Palestinian Students' Union and served as president of Columbia University's Buddhist Association for 2 years. Mohsen Mahdawi is one of several students who've been detained by the Trump administration. Former Columbia student protest leader Mahmoud Khalil has been detained since March 8th. Tufts PhD Fulbright scholar Rumeysa Ozturk was released a week ago after 6 weeks in detention. And Georgetown University scholar Badr Khansouri was freed on Wednesday after nearly 2 months in detention. Mohsen Mahdawi spent 2 weeks in a Vermont prison before a federal judge in Vermont ordered him released on bail. The judge, Jeffrey Crawford, compared the recent detentions of immigrant student protesters to the Red Scare and the Palmer raids of 1919-20. This is Mohsen Mahdawi speaking to supporters just after his release, April 30th.
And I am saying it clear and loud.
Yes.
To President Trump and his cabinet.
Yes.
I am not afraid of you.
Judge Crawford ruled Mahdawi should stay in Vermont but could come to New York for educational purposes. When the government objected, the judge responded Mohsen Mahdawi could travel to New York to attend his graduation at Columbia. The judge went on to write, quote, during his time in New York State, Mr. Mahdawi is permitted to move freely and conduct his daily activities normally, including but not limited to meeting with elected officials, speaking with and being interviewed by members of the press and media, speaking at public events, attending protests, the judge wrote. Mohsen Mahdawi hopes to begin graduate studies in September at Columbia's SIPA. That's the School of International and Public Affairs. But the Trump administration is still trying to deport him. Well, Mohsen Mahdawi joins me here now in our New York studio for his first live interview. Welcome to Democracy Now! Congratulations on your freedom, Mohsen.
Thank you, Amy. It's a pleasure to be with you. And good morning to your audience as well.
So if you can start off by telling us what happened, why you ended up going back to Vermont for this final, what you thought, immigration interview. What happened?
I mean, I was waiting for this interview, which is my naturalization process to receive a citizenship for over a year. And the reason I had to go to Vermont because my residence, my permanent residence is in Vermont. Therefore, I went to basically what I thought should be a normal, naturalization interview. I expected at the same time that there might be a trap set up for me, just seeing and witnessing what happened to other students, including Mahmoud Khalil and Rumeysa Ozturk. And therefore, I was prepared for that interview, that I might come on the other side with full rights or no rights.
We interviewed Vermont Congressmember Becca Balint at the time because you had written to her. She's the sole Congress member in Vermont, as well as to Senators Peter Welch, who visited you in prison, and Senator Bernie Sanders. You wrote them all because you were so concerned about what would happen?
This is exactly right. I mean, I prepared for on many different levels. Part of why I stayed in Vermont is because of the support that I received from official representatives, such as the senators and the congresswomen, who I'm very grateful for. But at the same time, also, I had to arrange with my lawyers in order to have everything drafted, ready to go, just prepared for the worst case scenario. So I prepared with the lawyers, contacted my representatives, and contacted my community members who are very close to me. And we saw the aftermath of this is I was able to stay in Vermont, something that other students did not have the luxury to do. They were uprooted from their communities and from legal support.
So what happened? You go to the naturalization interview. What day was that?
It was on the 14th of April.
And you went with your lawyer?
I went with one of my lawyers, an immigration lawyer. We go into USCIS office. This is the immigration office where I'm supposed to have my interview. And everything looked kind of normal. There were some signs. The officer who interviewed me inside was waiting for us. And after being in the lobby for a few minutes, the lobby was emptied from any other applicants. So it was only myself, my lawyer, and my friend. And I looked at them and I said, this is the calm before the storm.
And so you had your interview? Did you sign any documents?
Yes, I went through my regular interview for citizenship to the point I thought that I am going to receive the citizenship that same day, because I was asked the questions that I had to answer. I answered the questions correctly, and then I was asked if I am willing to take the Pledge of Allegiance. When the officer asked me if I am willing to do so, I said, of course. And he asked me to sign a document saying that I am willing to actually protect and defend the Constitution of this country. And shortly after that moment, just within a minute, the DHS agents storm the office, separate me from my lawyer, and they say that I am under arrest.
Masked?
I mean,
were they masked?
They were masked. They had hoods on. You could not recognize them, and they had guns on them as well.
And they masked around you? Did they handcuff you?
Yes, directly. Actually, there was not any space or room to show us documents or to explain anything. And they said, you're under arrest. So I gave them my hands and I said, I am a peaceful man. I am not going to resist.
And so you were taken. Where was your lawyer?
They prevented my lawyer from being with me. So I was taken through the back door into the lobby, outside of that building, into an unmarked SUV. And my lawyer did not know what's happening with me. In fact, at that time, all of what was going in their head is to basically execute the premeditated plan that they had in mind, which is to ship me, to send me to Louisiana. They had the tickets, the airplane tickets printed and ready. The agents had the tickets ready.
So they drove you to Burlington?
Well,
the airport?
Yes. So before they took me to the airport, they took me to a building to process me. And the processing, which we expected to take place in St. Albans at the prison, did not actually take place there. So I was surprised, very surprised. They processed me in a different building, separate building, only 10 minutes away from the airport. And then they drive me to the airport and they hand me to two other agents who are supposed to fly me on a commercial flight.
And what happened?
At that moment, I asked the agents, I said, are we going to Louisiana? And they said yes. And I asked which direction. So I clarified that it's going to stop by New York City, then to Louisiana. We went into the airport and we realized that the flight was, basically we were late. The flight was about to take off. The airplane was being taxied. During that time, I also was not feeling well, so I had to use the restroom for a brief time. And the moment I get out of the restroom, while we're walking towards the gate, we see the airplane being taxied away.
So your stop in the bathroom saved you from this plane?
I don't know if that is the reason, but some people think that this might be the reason.
When you got to the airport, you saw the plane pulling, when you got to the gate, you saw the plane pulling away?
Yes.
And what did it allow time for your lawyer?
I mean, if you think of it, that has changed the path of my legal fight for justice. It allowed my lawyers to fight on fair ground and to free me within 16 days, something that other students, as you saw, weeks and months they've been in detention.
So you were held in detention in a prison in Vermont?
Correct.
With other migrants?
That's right. In this prison, in fact, basically ICE rents a section of the prison. And the section where I was, it was a mixture of 3/4 of people who have committed crimes before and 1/4 of migrants who come in and out. And I was, my cell was C38, the first cell in that C section where the migrants are. So I saw waves of the migrants. Those are not just migrants, those are the people who feed us, who plant our food, who harvest our organic, delicious Vermont produce.
Like the dairy workers
and the
who were
dairy
detained.
workers as well. So I was able to meet the first wave, which is farm workers who worked on farms, and the second wave was farm workers who worked on the dairy in dairy farms.
Describe the conditions of your detention and what that brought to you, what that reminded you of.
Fabrics of injustice, you see them everywhere. I was prepared for worst case scenario. So to be honest with you, being in this prison was not as bad as I thought mentally. But the difficult parts was realizing this interconnectedness between injustices. It reminded me of my uncles, and specifically my uncle Abed, at some point when a guard shined the light through the squared window in the door. And the light was so strong in my eyes, and they remembered my uncle who had bloody eyes permanently. And then I thought...
Where was your uncle?
My uncle was imprisoned in the Israeli prisons, and now he's no longer alive.
He was in the West Bank.
He passed away 2 years ago. That's correct. He was born, raised, and died in a refugee camp, the same refugee camp where I was born.
Al-Farah.
Yeah. And I had this realization when I was there. I am now interconnected to 3 generations of my family. My grandfather, who was unjustly imprisoned, my father and my uncles who were unjustly imprisoned, and my cousins who were also unjustly imprisoned. And now I can feel their pain.
You also lost your brother, as well as other members of your family. Talk about where you were born. Talk about your family in the West Bank and in Gaza.
What I am doing here in America, this is exactly the question that I hope for the government to ask and to look into, rather than just labeling me. What I've been protesting for is related to my first-hand life experience. As a child, I buried my own brother when I was 8 years old. He was 6 years old. And my brother faced serious issues. He was paralyzed because the Israeli army prevented my father from taking him to receive medical care. The camp was under siege. And then in the second intifada, when it started in 2000, I was 10 years old. And I witnessed my best friend getting shot and killed in front of my eyes. And the pain of injustice that you feel when you see just a kid who you loved so much, his life being taken away in a second, is a painful experience. But that wasn't it too. My uncle, on September 12, 2001, after September 11, my uncle Thayer was killed on the hands of the Israeli army as well.
Where?
In Tammun, in fact, between Al-Farah refugee camp and Tammun. The same town that 5 people were killed, it's only 5 miles away, actually 5 kilometers away, about 3 miles away from the refugee camp.
The 5 people were just killed
That's
in the last
correct.
day.
So it hits home. Everything that I am seeing and I am witnessing. I mean, in the second intifada also, I lost 2 cousins. I was shot in my leg when I was 15 years old. And some people would say, oh, what was happening and why those people were killed? This does not, what matters is that children live in pain, in suffering, in trauma. And we have to see that for what it is. And we cannot just justify the killing, the murder, the continuous occupation, the apartheid, the genocide. We cannot justify it anymore. We either have to be pro-peace or pro-war. There is no third option. Enough is enough. So many people are suffering. And for me, many family members in the West Bank since October 7th, 4 cousins. In Gaza, more than 30 of my extended family. And I come here to Colombia, and what I do, I share my pain with the world. And I say, this is so painful. The war must stop. Children are suffering. The trauma is unbearable. And what they do, the American government and the extreme groups, the pro-Israel extreme groups, they want to silence me. They don't want me to grieve. They don't want me to share the pain. They don't want me to share the loss. They don't want me to ask for justice. It doesn't matter if I'm doing it in the most peaceful, non-violent way or not. They want to silence me.
You were president of the Columbia University Buddhist Association for 2 years. What made you become a Buddhist?
I discovered Buddhism when I came to America. And what made me become Buddhist is the practice of meditation and empathy that helped me with my pain and the trauma that I bared as a child. So when I came to America, for the first time in my life, I was provided with a level of safety to feel safe. And when you have that level of physical and emotional safety, the trauma starts surfacing. And Buddhism has helped me to center, to calm my emotions, and to be able to connect with the other, even my oppressors, even people who caused me harm. And this is how I started my journey and dived deeper into Buddhism until I led the Buddhist Association at Columbia.
Over these last few months, the protests that have taken place across the country, calling for the release of the detained students like yourself, have been massive. And on April 20th, protesters gathered at Union Square to call for your release. The protest was organized by Israelis for Peace. This is Josh Drill, an Israeli-American master's student at Columbia University.
To deport someone like Mohsen sends a chilling message that peace builders are not welcome here. It derails the very path we so desperately need, and it actively stops Israelis and Palestinians from meeting. As a peace collective, we cannot allow this to happen. We cannot allow these deportations to happen. They threaten our future.
At that protest, I also spoke to the New York City Controller, Brad Lander, who is running for mayor right now.
This is somebody who grew up in a refugee camp in the West Bank, saw a friend be killed by an Israeli soldier, and yet rather than turn to vengeance and pick up a rock or a gun, turn to Buddhism and becomes a peace activist and comes here and goes into synagogue speaking about empathy.
The controller running for mayor, Brad Lander, also Zoran Mamdani, who's running for mayor, has come out in support of you. What was that like? How did you experience that in prison?
It might be too cheesy to say that I have never felt as much love and support as much as I felt when I was in the cell. I was not able to see the full spectrum of support and of love and of protest, but I heard about some of the action that was taking place. And I have to say, I was deeply moved by seeing everybody who has mobilized and protested, but more specifically by the Israeli and Jewish community in New York City and in America, really like moving and raising their voices against my detention.
Also, Judge Crawford noted his court had received more than 90 statements and letters. I understand now it's well over 100 from Vermont community members, academic experts and professors, many of them Jewish, vouching for your character. What did that mean to you, Mohsen?
It meant that I am heard, that I am being seen, that my advocacy and work for peace and for justice did not go for nothing.
All of this is the Trump administration went after you, saying you promoted anti-Semitism. What did Secretary of State Marco Rubio claimed in a memo that the New York Times obtained that your actions could, quote, potentially undermine the Middle East peace process? Your response?
I'm not sure if they actually have a peace process. If they have a peace process, let them show us what the plan is. What we are doing is we are protesting and we are standing against war. We're asking for America and for the rest of the world to abide by international law and human rights as a first step. This government has been violating the basic principles of human rights and the basic principles that international law was established on. They're violating this country's own laws, the Leahy laws. And if they are accusing me...
The former senator of Vermont.
Exactly. And what they are doing, they're gaslighting the American people, and they are pointing the wrong direction. My response to this is listen to the peacemakers who we have, Palestinians, Israelis, Jews, Muslims, Americans, everyone, and see the fact and the reality for what it is. What they're trying to do, they're trying to distract from the real issue, and the real issue is funding and supporting a genocide and dehumanizing Palestinians and seeing them as less of a value, don't deserve equal rights as everybody else.
Mohsen Mahdawi, can you talk about your dreams for the future, starting with next week? Class Day is Monday. I don't know if it was timed for the 100th anniversary of Malcolm X's birthday, but that is Monday, May 19th. Graduation is Wednesday. What does it mean for you to be here in New York graduating with your classmates?
This is a long-waited for journey. This is the seed of hope that my uncle Thayer has planted in me when I was 11 years old and when I was in deep level of pain after the loss and horror and the trauma that I felt. And he said to me, he said, after the Nakba, the 1948, we lost everything but our minds and our souls. And he said, education and hope is your only way and your path moving forward, because we have nothing left. And in honor of my uncle's spirit, I continued studying really hard until I made it to this point, despite of all of the obstacles with the Israeli occupation. And now what it means to me, it means that I can share this light of hope, not only with my uncle's spirit that might be hovering above us, but also with the children who are living in painful conditions in Gaza, the children who lost their parents, who lost their friends, their family members, who have been terrorized with all of the pain and the destruction and the bombing. I tell them that there is a way moving forward, and that way is education. Education is light, education is hope, and education is the path to move forward.
You're not only hoping to graduate next week, walking with your classmates, but then you want to go on to CIPA, to the Columbia School of International and Public Affairs graduate school, where you've been accepted. The judge in Vermont says you should be able to be here in New York to continue your educational activities.
Yes, this is also to fulfill the dream that I have, the dream of peacemaking, of conflict resolution. This is the whole point I came to Colombia, and this is the whole point why I am going to study at SIPA. The American government, as it seems to me, they don't want me to continue my education. They didn't want me to graduate, and they don't want me to get my master's degree. I also have to share that what happens at Columbia University matters for the rest of America. The Columbia University administration, as I have been witnessing it, has been participating in the deterioration and destruction of the democratic system. They are not listening to their students. The students have, like the majority of the student body, have voted to divest from war any entities that are supporting the apartheid and the genocide. Columbia University administration is not listening. And in a matter of few days, I will be walking, and I would be walking with a conflict, mixed feelings. The feeling that I love this university that has given me tools to express my thoughts and to yearn and to achieve my dreams for freedom and for justice. And the other feelings that I feel deeply disappointed by the Columbia University administration. And I know that it's going to continue to be a struggle while I am going to be finalizing my master's degree.
As you and Ramesa Ozturk, the Tufts University student, and Badr Khansuri, the Georgetown scholar, are released, others remain detained, like Mahmoud Khalil, a judge in Vermont, among those determining his fate. What is your message to those still behind bars and those whose names we don't know?
I say the same message, that don't give up, and don't give up on the idea of justice. Justice is inevitable, it's a matter of time, and don't give into despair. What we are seeing with my release, with Ramesa's release, and with Dr. Khan's release, those are light of hope, and you will be next, and we will be able to celebrate you very, very soon. The same message that the Gazan people have been sending to us, we're gaining strength from them to see all of the destruction, almost no buildings left in Gaza, no schools, universities, that I'm going to graduate, no more universities for students to attend or to graduate from in Gaza. A painful reality. They are sending us a message that there is so much more to hope for than giving up on the idea of justice and surrendering to fear and to violence. So I say, stay strong, and we will celebrate under the sun in a matter of a very short time.
Democracy Now! Is funded by viewers like you. Please give today at democracynow.org/give.